the outdoor program through Missoula Parks and Recreation for the BIPOC community. And we just came up with a name. It's going to be Here MT, and that has relevance to just this community of BIPOC folks being here, have always been here, and a part of the outdoor experience in Montana. And so I'm going to share a screen here with you all and go through a PowerPoint. All right. So here is some photos, and we're just going to get this going. So first, we want to acknowledge that today we're here on the land of Salish Kootenai peoples and the many other tribal nations that call Missoula, Montana home. A little bit about myself. Like what Sage said, I do work at Missoula City Parks and Recs. I also work at Empower Montana and the YWCA. I work there doing racial justice work, and then I'm guiding on the weekends for this program throughout the year and during our programming. So what is Here Montana, and why did I create a program? So Here Montana is an outdoor program for the BIPOC community, and what it's been able to do is essentially take the outdoors, which is something that for a lot of folks, you know, they're either born here or have the awesome privilege to be able to experience the outdoors on an often basis. But there are other communities that might have a hard time experiencing the outdoors, maybe based on the fact that they aren't from here. And I'll use my own experiences. I'm from Maryland, and my outdoor experience is very little, especially growing up. I didn't have access to the things that I have here in Montana, that's for sure. And so for me, I thought, you know, if I am having a hard time accessing these things, how can I make it easier for those other folks that may also have a difficult time? And how that came about was I got my degree at the University of Montana. I got a communications degree, a bachelor's in communications, and then a bachelor's in photojournalism. And in both degrees, I was able to study and discover the lack of diversity within representation and within marketing, within the outdoor industry, and within the capital that the outdoor industry is creating here in Missoula, Montana. And so I said, okay, well, how do we as a BIPOC community enter this realm that has always been here, but not necessarily has always been open to having different community members be a part of it? Now, I think that the outdoor community is very welcoming, and everyone is stoked to get outside and everyone wants to get outside. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the folks that want to participate feel welcomed. And so with this program, we really work to create an environment that welcomes the different communities that are here within the Missoula Valley. And how it got created was through City Parks and Recreation. I was able to work with the city, who then, through my partnerships with different businesses and organizations, connect with different community members to have a funded program utilizing City Parks and Recs, gear, staff, etc., to make sure that as we introduce outdoor recreation to our BIPOC communities, we're able to provide the best gear, you know, ensure safety and ensure a good time. And first, I want to clear up a definition, which is BIPOC. I'm sure most of you know this, but it stands for Black, Indigenous, People of Color, and it is an acronym widely used to represent a big community of people. And I also understand that there are many intersections within that identity as well, for people who may have gender pronouns that can identify with the BIPOC community as well. And so with this program, what do we have to offer? Yeah, I mean, it's right here. We do cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, rafting, fishing, hiking, mountain biking, climbing. And what does a day in the program look like? So this goes with our goals. Our goals is really to empower, elevate the BIPOC community. We want folks to feel encouraged to be outside. We want folks to know that they can be here, get on the river, and do these sorts of activities and feeling competent in doing so. For example, with rafting or with fishing, you know, it takes a lot more than just being able to jump in the river just to go fishing. You know, you have to get a fishing license. Where do you get that fishing license? How much do you pay for it? And then you have to figure out where are your access points. I can't just jump into a river at any point. You know, we live in a state where there are regulations between public water access and private lands. And so, you know, ensuring that we are building competency within our groups so that people know where to go, how to get there, what sorts of gear that they would need in order to proceed on with the day, with like fishing. Or with rafting, which is something that we did all of this summer, we were able to start folks off with just basic information about, how do you get a boat in the water? Where is a put in and where is a takeout? How do you get on the raft? When you're on the raft, what's the best thing to do? What are our safety protocols? And these are all things that for me, after living here for over a couple of years, I definitely, now I kind of take it for granted. I feel like, okay, I know what to do. I just check all these things and we're on the boat, let's go. But I also recognize that that can be something that is really difficult for people to learn and to hear and to feel like nurtured through within this experience, because being out on the river can be scary, it can be dangerous, and there are definitely safety precautions that have to be taken on when getting on the river or getting on the mountain. And so what does a day in the program look like? So often we pick people up at Currents, which is at Missoula Parks and Recreations off Craig Lane. And that has been a rendezvous point for us because it's the central location. And then we utilize city parks and recreation vehicles. And then that is now with COVID, there are safety procedures for that, masks on, hand sanitizer, et cetera. And then we take you to a location to do any of one of these activities. But before we start the activities, we always go over safety, where to go, what to do, those things that I was talking about just a second ago about access, information that gains folks access and competency to be outside. Because at the end of the day, all of these activities are great, but my goal and this program's goal is not to have folks always coming to this program. We want folks to know that they can go and do that on their own, with the information that they have. And we want to support them through community and to be there with them, but also to encourage folks that they can be independent out there in the mountains doing these sorts of things. So representation, inclusion, and equity. So those are all buzzwords I'm sure everyone has been hearing, hopefully over your whole lives. But, I think in recent times, it's definitely been very big words. And so I just want to go over what those words mean to me personally as a facilitator and as someone who recreates outside. And so with representation, for me, I want to see folks that look like me, not a long-haired Asian guy, not necessarily. That would be cool. But, just someone of a minority background that's go out there doing these things. Because for me, moving to Montana from Maryland, it was a stretch. I moved somewhere that was totally different from where I grew up, seeing different people, and especially when it came to the outdoors. Every time I went outside and I wanted to, get on my Instagram and I was like, what is backcountry skiing? Or, what is water rafting? The first things that would come up is, it was not very diverse within that selection. And so a representation is a huge part of a foundational pillar of this group. I happen to be a photographer as well. And so I try and take as many pictures as I can of the participants, because representation does matter. It shows often people within positions of power that we might not see or we might not recognize, such as someone that's on the oars. Someone that's on the oars represents someone that knows what they're doing on the water, understands the safety protocols, hopefully, and can navigate water safely for their crew on the boat. Amongst the other things, those would be some of the fundamental things. But we don't see a lot of minority folks within those positions of power represented, being in those seats, taking control of a boat. And I think that really does a lot for what representation means to me. It means that I can see someone that looks like myself. The inclusion part, inclusion for me means, including everybody. And like I said before, the BIPOC community obviously intersects with, all of these different identities. And I think that it's important that everyone has an opportunity to be acknowledged for their differences, because it's within our differences that make community. I think that within the outdoor community, it can often be like, if you can't ski this section with us, then you can't come with us, therefore you cannot be included. And sometimes that's just a fact of the matter. It's a safety issue. But oftentimes as a community, it can feel very exclusive when you hear these types of things. And so our goal in this group is to be as inclusive as possible, to show people that one person may know everything about the boats, but you're more than capable to learn as well and to be there. And we want to include everybody that wants to to include themselves. And for me, I would definitely say, I mean, some of my friends are in this room. I'm so grateful to so many of them for being inclusive to me, knowing that I can be a klutz, I can, and just be slow and be that person in the back. But folks have been so gracious to me in their time and being inclusive to me. And that has really transformed me into the person that I am today. And so I'm grateful to those folks that are here today and not here today for being inclusive. And that can really have a big matter into someone's changing in terms of being able to feel confident outdoors. And then equity. What does equity mean? Equity for me means that because we live within a system that is already created, there are already rules and regulations. Equity means going out of the way sometimes, or above and beyond those procedures to make equality happen for individuals that may not have access to things. And that can look like, for rafts. Not a lot of folks that we went out with this year have had opportunities to be on rafts, period, ever in their lives. And so an equitable move is to make this program free, because folks it may not always be a financial or a socioeconomic issue, but it can be. But sometimes just having that experience can open that door to someone being super stoked on it and wanting to invest in something and wanting to get out there and try these things. And so I think equity, Parks and Rec does a great job of that through this program, making it free. It allows folks to just walk in the door with what they have, and we provide the rest of it. And it allows folks to have an honest experience with themselves and with the outdoors within the community to really see where they like, whether or not they like being out there. And so with that said, we obviously want to build community, and community means a lot of different things. Community means community amongst the participants. This year we've had, refugees meeting community members, meeting college kids, and college kids meeting high school kids, and high school kids meeting parents, and kids from our indigenous communities. Like, everyone just gets to meet, and there's something beautiful that happens when all of these different communities are able to meet each other within the grounds of like somewhere new, a different space, a different experience, and a different kind of like entertainment, I suppose, than what folks are normally used to. Confidence is the next thing. Confidence is huge. I am sure that if any of you get out in the outdoors, there is a level of confidence that you need to know that, like, this next step, I'm not going to trip over. I got to keep walking, or this might be heavy, but I'm going to get through this. And we just want to build that confidence throughout our program, because we believe that with confidence gains that the ability to identify with the outdoors in a way that it isn't through someone else. It's through your experiences and your own confidence that you're able to do these things. And then to go back real quick, we have community. And so I just want to say a huge thank you to Missoula Parks and Recreation. This would not be possible without Parks and Recreation and Empower Montana, the YWCA, All Nations Health Center, Soft Landings, and Golden Yield Griddle. So if you're interested in coming out, Golden Yield Griddle cooks amazing food. And so we often have food at our events as well. And so that's just a plug there. And stakeholders. I think this is something that within the outdoor industry, we don't necessarily always think about, because we're thinking about buzzwords like inclusion, representation, and diversity. But if we think about in Montana, what our big issues are, even within this past ballot, public lands. If you want to change public lands, it goes down to voting. It can go down to you being a steward of the land and cleaning something on the river or cleaning up a trail and being a part of a community. But ultimately, it goes down to votes and what you're voting for, because that's how public lands, how they change that, who gets access to things. And so by introducing the outdoors and by building a community around the outdoors, especially for the BIPOC community who have not had that sort of community, it creates new stakeholders. It creates new people who can now go out and vote and have a reason to vote on public lands and public water issues, and have a reason to care about things that might not primarily seem like a BIPOC issue, but it is a BIPOC issue. And it just creates that next level of commitment, the next level of care for the land that they're able to access doing different activities like climbing or hiking or backpacking. And then the last is access. Again, that just goes with competency. It goes with all of the other things that I've been saying. Access is huge. We want folks to know that going back to the Instagram example, if you search fly fishing, fly fishing is extremely expensive, and those brands make it seem very exclusive. Not everybody has to wear a Patagonia, waders with their Orvis rod and reels with this $3,000 setup. I mean, that's somewhere that we can all get to or aspire to be at, but honestly, you don't need all of that. And we want folks to know that access is on the spectrum and that we can be anywhere within that spectrum and be able to enjoy the outdoors. It's super important that people know that, because sometimes that can be just an initial mental deterrence when you search something online and you see, what gear do I need to ski? And then you're like, wow, I don't know if I can, afford to do that. And that can be something that really shuts people down. And so with cross-country skiing, which we'll be doing this winter, we tell people where the best deals are, where you can find cheap skis, what type of skis to get when you're just starting out, what type of winter gear do you need. You don't always need to have the Arc'teryx Gore-Tex shell. I mean, that's great, but you really don't need that. You can just go with a sweater and be able to be okay in a rain jacket. And so access can come in different ways, but that's a major factor that we talk about. And so now I'm just going to go through some things that I feel like is really important, which is representation. So these are going to be images, and I want everyone to think about how they most commonly see these images and the differences here. And I'm just going to speak from my own experiences by just watching these folks that are within these photographs. Just being able to see folks fly fishing or on the oars again. This person that's on the oars, I think it was a really special moment for me because I was not a student at all, but I always knew that I wanted to do something in the outdoors, and I was like, how am I going to get there? How am I going to do this? And this young man said, hey, is this a job? Like, do you seriously do this? Like, you woke up this morning and took boats out and you're taking people out and they're paying you to do this? And we're like, yeah, I guess that is what's happening. And his dad was there and he's like, well, let me get out of school. Let's start doing this. And I think it just created this idea that I hadn't seen actually play out in front of me before, where someone's thought process really went from this can be not only an opportunity to have fun, but an opportunity to gain employment and an opportunity to get into a community and an opportunity to get outside with other people. And these are some other things that we did here. We can go back here. So we went fishing here on the Clark Fork. Our plan with this was to get everyone learning how to cast, getting everyone to learn kind of how to read the water. We were using a nymphing setup, so we had a little bobber and watching the bobber, and that was great. And then our next session was taking folks out onto rafts. This rafting session was down the Clark Fork, and that was later on within our summer series. And we were working with just youth and families, and that was a great experience. We were able to just get out and just enjoy the day. This was a mountain biking experience. This was another special experience. First time mountain biking for the kid, and it was just cool to see someone get out there, do it. It was sweet. I mean, I watch mountain bikers, and it's just, what representation can do is just, I think, is an extraordinary thing. And the confidence that it builds for someone to see themselves doing something that they see other people doing in a photograph. This was a day out at Lake Placid. We went out and just had fun. We had the kayaks and paddle boards. This is it's a 13-foot paddle board or something. But that was an amazing day as well. Here's some other things that we don't often see as well, which is that intersection, genders, identities, different religions, different people from different places with different experiences coming together to enjoy the outdoors and seen within photographs. I think that plays a huge role. Being within the fly fishing community myself and the rafting community as well, I wouldn't necessarily see this type of stuff on an NRS ad or, in a fly fishing commercial. And what does that do to people that, that aren't marketed towards for these activities? I think it does a lot, and it's something to just consider as we go into this winter season and we see the snowboarding and skiing advertising and cross-country skiing advertising. Just, I encourage everyone to just take a look and just see, who are they advertising to? Who is it meant for? Yes, it can be a family, and yes, it could be a single person. But our differences, like I said earlier, our differences is what makes our community special. And I think that our differences, especially when it comes to race and identity, makes us even more special. And it's something that we can respect and honor and highlight, which then just brings more people in. And it also brings a different understanding for the folks that are within the majority of those sports, because they say, wow, I didn't know that, you know, where did you learn to ski? Like, how did you do that? It just creates conversation. And so that's something to think about throughout and as our winter season continues. These have been some bigger groups that we've had this summer. This was our Lake Placid day, and this was a day out on the Blackfoot River. An amazing time. We were able to just, again, get folks down the river, learning things that they might not have known otherwise. And so that's been super fun. And this is our cross-country skiing this winter. This was over at the Experimental Forest in Lubricht. And that was an amazing time as well. And just people having fun, their first time on skis, like learning something. And I think that's, I mean, it's the winter in Montana. It's like eternal darkness. And so, you know, getting outside is a one way to just, you know, work on your mind, be outside, do these things. And if you don't have access to that, then we'd love to sort out ways that we can help you with that as well. But in terms of this conversation, cross-country skiing was a first for a lot of people, and they had, yeah, it was just really cool to see people doing that. I find cross-country skiing really hard because I'm pretty clumsy, but it was really cool to get out and just see everyone doing it, being outside, getting out in the wintertime, etc. So if you're interested in more information, you can contact me. My email is there. We have a Facebook group. It's called Here MT. You're more than welcome to add yourselves there. And we're looking for someone to help us with the social media. So this is just a plug here. So if anyone's interested in that, please email me as well. And that will be, yeah, we would love to get folks included in this and just a part of it in any way that you feel like participating. So with that, I just want to say thank you to Sage and Haley and the university for putting this all together. Thank you, Kyle, for your work in DiverseU. And thanks to all my friends and my family who support me through this, because I know that the outdoors is something that I'm like, I have other work, but I like prefer to be out there. So anyways, I always appreciate the support. And I just want to open it up to some questions for these last couple minutes.
What's your favorite part of your job? Like if you just had to pinpoint one thing that you really enjoy, what would it be?
One thing. I think being able to learn something from someone else, that's definitely my favorite part.
Alex, do you take the photos?
I do take the photos.
They're awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you looking for support from outfitters as well? What's the intersection with that community? Are you mainly going through Parks and Rec?
Yeah, so we are looking for support from outfitters as well. Parks and Rec is our main kind of organization that we work out of, but we're definitely open to any sort of program partnerships and sponsorships, especially from outfitters that may have access to things that parks might not.
Just to piggyback off that, I worked at a sports and outdoors store for 5 years, Bob Ward's here in Missoula. It's a local store, local to Montana. They might be a great person to get in contact with and like kind of get this out to the community. They're great with community outreach. I really liked working there. The people there are awesome, and they're always looking for ways to help the community. They're great people.
Yeah, thank you.
Any final questions for Alex? Okay. Thank
Awesome.
you so much for coming. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Sage. Great job. Keep an eye out, folks. There are more sessions today. And then if you missed any DiverseU sessions, they'll be posted on the University Center Facebook page. So if there's any that you weren't able to go to that you really wanted to, check it out next week and we'll have all of those posted. Thanks for coming.